Okay, how's it going, guys? It is Illuminostic. Thank you so much for joining me for this light stream. um, I had a series of revelations about dopamine and flow state in the last couple of weeks. And actually, it's just sort of snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. I made a bunch of intuitive connections that I think this is turning out to be an even bigger deal than I thought at first. So it really is, I guess, an honor. Wouldn't really be going too far to be presenting this information to you guys tonight, because it's no secret that plant medicine and even the conventional chemical psychedelics have tremendous potential to allow us to take charge of our own consciousness, to rewire our brain, and to heal all sorts of traumas that conventional psychiatry really just puts band-aids on. They want to keep you in the cycle of therapy. They want to keep you in the cycle of medication. They're not trying to resolve your trauma. They're not trying to get to the core of it and permanently get rid of it. And there's really so much more to this than just healing trauma. That's really just the beginning stage, because what happens is that, once your consciousness is sort of freed and expanded, it is really important that you do deal with these traumas and the baggage that you're carrying along before you really try to get into an accelerated consciousness catalyzing program, because you really can get yourself in a lot of trouble. It does more harm than good if the stages aren't, if the process isn't honored in, with each step being thoroughly attended to before you try to climb to the next rung on the ladder, right? So, but beyond the healing of the trauma is this potential to live your best life, to tap into levels of creativity that you never would have imagined possible, to improve your cognitive faculties beyond anything that you would have imagined prior to these experiences. And there's just such a sort of entourage or snowballing of effects and positive accumulations that can occur that are going to give you just so much momentum in order to restructure yourself and to create the most fulfilling experience of life that is possible. And so basically what happened is that I started thinking for myself, after a long period of illness, I had sort of been taken out of the game in my own life. I didn't really have much interest in music anymore. I wasn't really playing the guitar. But the illness really, it took a lot away from me. And then when I started to come out of it and sort of pick up again, I realized that it wasn't, there was still a lot of work that needed to be done. And so one of my biggest concerns is, how do I make up for lost time? How do I really motivate myself to engage in all of the old habits and practices and behaviors that allowed me to master the guitar and study all of these different traditions and sciences, and then also, while doing all that, run businesses and marijuana grows and all of this stuff. How did I do that so fluidly? And if you guys follow my channel, I've had a lot of experiences with remarkable degree of intuition, and that hasn't been as consistent for a while. So I started to think, what can I do about this? And the first thing that I realized from studying ketamine, clinical applications of ketamine, is that glutamate has sort of usurped the position of serotonin and serotonergic drugs as the sort of main, most important neurotransmitter. And so that was kind of an important revelation that that, you know, all of these serotonergic compounds like LSD and MDMA, they're very good at what they do, but there is, you know, if you're thinking about like cognitive clarity and memory and a lot of the stuff that just isn't covered by you know, self-regulation of serotonin and ingestion of these serotonergic compounds, the glutamate is super important. So that was a huge revelation. And then I just happened to stumble across a video about dopamine, and I I had kind of an old school understanding of dopamine. A lot of people still kind of think this way about it, that it's sort of a demon in our brain that is responsible for addictions, and that is sort of like a cheap reward pathway, and that, you know, it's something that you want to de-emphasize. If anything, there's a lot of trending like dopamine fasts, which aren't actually the best thing. This isn't about like dumping a bunch of dopamine into your system and having pikes or spikes and valleys. What you're looking for is to develop a conscious and continuous relationship with your dopamine baseline and dopamine peaks. And, you know, it is a kind of tedious and even potentially dangerous thing to do. It's like once you start on this pathway of consciously regulating your dopamine levels and your dopamine baseline, you really have to stay committed to it. But there's a tremendous amount of power that lies within this capacity that we have to sort of engineer our own neurobiology. And it is an extraordinarily powerful tool to consider in combination with plant medicine and psychedelics and the things that we are learning about how they affect the brain. Because we have the ability to choose to make our neural pathways more plastic, which enables us to learn more rapidly and to change old patterns. And we have learned that with psilocybin and other compounds, we actually can rejuvenate damaged brain cells, which is something that was believed to be impossible before John Hopkins a few years ago did their experiments with psilocybin. And this also applies to shriveled brain cells from alcoholism and addiction. Any sort of depression actually does damage to these brain cells, which can be reversed to the extent that John Hopkins is actually currently doing trials to see if they can use psilocybin to rejuvenate people who are brain dead from traumatic brain injury. So, you know, I'm explaining that to sort of shed some light on the real power that is sort of inherent in the proper use of these medicines. And so I was considering, you know, beyond dopamine, what other elements, you know, can be attributed or ascribed to a protocol for, you know, integration. For example, I do ayahuasca ceremonies and other plant medicine, and generally integration is about supporting people emotionally and helping them try to sort of reintegrate into their normal life after having this experience of stepping into another dimension for a few hours and having encounters with, you know, aspects of the mind and their own personality and their shadow self that may be very difficult to process after the fact. But it occurred to me that, you know, doing this with an approach that actually addresses our neurobiology and gives us support from dopamine is not actually a neurotransmitter, it's a neuromodulator, but it's ballpark the same thing. But, you know, taking into consideration dietary considerations and behaviors that are really going to allow us to avoid the peak and valley experience, and that are going to allow us to maintain the kind of top of the mountain transcendental feeling that we get from plant medicine, you know, so that once we're actually healed from these traumas and maybe we have a clearer sense of purpose, we can actually carry that with us. Are we having problems with lag? I feel like that's why we're having some people dropping off. I apologize if that's the case. We're in the Amazon and our internet's not always great. It'd be unfortunate because I've been super excited about this live stream for days, because I feel like this is, you know, a real opportunity for me to contribute something original and important, to the conversation. And right on, Ryan. Thank you. That's very nice. Likewise. So where was I with this? Okay, so looking at a protocol. So it started with just really looking at dopamine, and you know, I saw some things that were sort of correlative with the benefits of psychedelics, but that would allow you to sort of extend the gains, the investitures, the advantages that you're getting from these psychedelic experiences without having to be tripping all the time, which, you know, for most people is necessary. And so, you know, one of those things is pattern recognition, cognitive enhancement. It sounds basically, you know, dopamine's function sounds basically like the advantages of microdosing. So the relationship became really obvious really quickly. But the next thing that happened is I started looking into flow state. And it's something that I had not really considered in the past. I'd heard of it, but I didn't really think too much about it. And, you know, I'm a musician, and the type of music that I play is very heavily, okay, thanks, Mr. Charles, very heavily related to improvisation, or it relies heavily on improvisation, and not just improvisation, but improvisation in altered states. And we're not necessarily even talking about like chemically induced altered states, because I've had some extraordinary experiences of what would have to be described as altered states without any chemical enhancement while improvising, to the extent that you know, sometimes I would come out of the improvisational trance and I wouldn't know where I was. I would be drenched in sweat and literally looking around the bar wondering how all these people got into my bedroom. On one occasion, that's literally the first thought that I had, is what are all these people doing in my room, because I thought I was just waking up in bed. And also I remember wondering why I was so wet, because I was always drenched in sweat. Time dilation, you know, I remember one time performing on a moderate dose of LSD where I entered into flow state, and I could perceive every note and every beat as this big sphere, and I could choose whether to come at it from, you know, exactly a certain angle with exactly so much pressure from my fingertip. And it's like I had an infinite amount of time to consider exactly how I was going to approach every note. And so this is also a very common description of, you know, an aspect of this flow state from athletes, and, you know, you can enter into it in all sorts of different ways. And so I started looking at all of the different flow state triggers, and what I realized is that during this peak time in my life where I was able to master so many different subjects and run businesses, and I had a never-ending amount of energy, and my intuition was so strong that I would do incredibly impossible things just based on intuition. In fact, I even did a couple of tests where I arranged for witnesses, and the craziest one, there's a video about this on my channel, I've been meaning to remake it for forever, is that I wanted to talk to the drummer from Tool about certain occult subjects that I had also been studying. And I just told my friends, I'm going to go talk to Danny Carey, brought one of them with me, drove to California, and where I parked in LA, Danny walked in the back door of the Baked Potato. It turned out to be called to play an open mic, like 30 minutes after we parked the car. So, you know, these kind of elements of consciousness, where this voice takes over that guides us, and, you know, skiers will talk about it, you know, go left or right, or, you know, I'm not a skier, so I don't know the exact terminology, but, you know, people, BMX people, myself, in terms of music, or just in my life in general, there's this voice that will dictate what you need to do next, and if you don't listen to it, you end up crashing. And in my experience, this voice is present not just in these sort of peak flow state experiences, but it is often present just in our normal macro existence. So getting a little bit ahead of myself there, but what I realized is that my entire life I had subconsciously engineered to maximize flow state. I was constantly living risk because I did not have any sort of like normal life. I was just an outlaw in pot country in Northern California, and my life was constantly in danger, and nothing was certain at all. There's no paycheck, um, you have no idea what's coming tomorrow. And as I lived there longer, it got increasingly dangerous, and that's another one of the circumstances that is necessary to enter into flow state. There has to be some element of risk, clear goals, right? And so, again, if you guys follow my channel and a lot of other people that are spiritual teachers, or Aleister Crowley's whole entire point was that you needed to devote your life first to making contact with what he called the holy guardian angel. A lot of people call it your higher self. You could even call it like the subconscious mind. But it's that voice that gives you these directions. And not only that, but you are sort of tasked with determining what is your highest purpose, what is your true will. And then you are to dedicate every breath and every thought and every deed to that specific objective without wavering, no matter what. And everything in your life is engineered to support that, right? And so another prerequisite of entering flow state is clear goals. Unambiguous feedback. So I was a musician, and I would walk out into the audience, and people would tell me exactly what, you need to work on your voice, or, you need to do this or that. It actually kind of surprised me how blunt people would be about all sorts of different aspects. So a challenge skill balance. This is also something that is incredibly important, I think, for anyone. But for myself, I think playing a musical instrument is it's just such a great way to learn to enter into this flow state, because concentration is a necessary prerequisite, so is creativity, right? So, and the challenge skill balance is that you need to constantly have objectives that are slightly beyond your ability, so that you're always climbing the mountain. One of the, going back to dopamine for a second, one of the conditions of the dopamine regulation or optimization is that the highest peak determines how high you can go, right? So every time you set a higher marker, it's actually, you can more easily access higher and higher peak experiences, which for me is a big part of what the purpose of life really is. Okay, so, and then curiosity, passion, and purpose. I'm always saying on this channel that our problem as a culture is that we have a severe crisis of purpose. People have this sort of existential, nihilistic, sort of ontological disposition that, nothing has any sort of meaning, that our lives are pointless, and we're just here. Life is what you can get away with, right? And for me, that wasn't ever the case. I felt like I knew that it was my job to advocate a certain kind of consciousness and to try to become like a hollow tube to bring down fire from heaven and sort of illuminate people as much as I possibly could, and myself as much as I possibly could. So when I started looking through this flow state stuff, I realized that this is what I had done. I had engineered my life to where I was maximizing flow state. And the other thing I missed is autonomy, right? And I was always, that's been my number one thing. I would rather risk starvation and prison and whatever else than have to give up my autonomy, right? That is number one. So, if you go back over that list that I just sort of delineated, one of the things you'll notice is that our culture, our society is engineered to actually minimize flow state. And I think flow state is actually a sort of blanket term that covers a lot of different types of experiences. And so what this is all getting to, because I only have about a half an hour, and there's actually no timer on my screen for some reason. But that's because I'm doing a secret stream on the number 9, which happens to relate 100% to this whole dopamine. You'll have to watch the secret stream if you want to hear more about that. But the kind of numerology that we're talking about, by the way, is not really, it's not that it's not mystical, because mystical is only mysterious, but it's a sort of functional numerology where the meaning of numbers and the purpose of numbers and the spirit of numbers is understood based on their functionality and not on some sort of intuitive woo. So it's really solid and interesting stuff. And Pythagoras is really our torchbearer in that department. So if you guys are not patrons, please do join my Patreon. You join our secret streams when you do that. Also, if you want to make a one-time contribution because we're demonetized, there are options in the chat and options in the description. We get nothing for our efforts. So I am putting together a course, and that is going to be an extraordinary thing, and it's going to include lots and lots of personal, like 20 hours of screen time with me. We're going to talk about plant medicine, choosing your medicine, how to get the best facility out of it. I'll actually give you guys some insight into what that's going to look like. One of the problems with dopamine enhancement is that most of the ways that you can boost dopamine last for seconds or minutes, and they result in a spike and a crash, which is not what you want to happen. That's not good. So what you want to look for are ways to actually sustainably increase and create a homeostasis with that dopamine. And so I was looking through the list of dopamine enhancing substances and activities, and what the thing that won was amphetamines, which are not good. They're not healthy. But amphetamine caused a lasting 10x boost in dopamine levels. So I thought, okay, so how can we and I didn't need to think anymore, because I realized right away mescaline is an amphetamine. It's technically a phenethylamine, but its closest chemical cousin is ephedrine. So by supplementing with L-Dopa, which can be sourced from the red velvet bean, and using threshold doses of San Pedro every other day or so, and combining that with a regimen of activities and supplements also that are going to help you to sustain those dopamine levels, we're really talking about some seriously powerful magic here. And when you consider that plant medicine is the catalyst to this whole process, you are constantly putting your brain in a more neuroplastic state, enhancing your neurogenesis. And so when you increase these dopamine levels and you foster this environment, this internal environment of cognitive clarity, of enhanced memory, of motivation and drive and purpose, you are programming your being very, 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 very rapidly that this is your normal state. This is your normal functionality. This is your normal modality. This is who and what you are. And so that's just the beginning of it, because there will be other supplements that, once you have this thing moving along, the Stammet stack, which is niacin, which is taken to trim the fat, I guess. There's sort of like dead ganglia, and your synapses can sort of become remember I was talking about shriveled brain cells and neurons? It shears those off, basically, right? The ones that can't be reanimated. So that's the purpose of the niacin, sort of to trim your brain, as crazy as that might sound. And then the psilocybin is there to reanimate what can be saved in terms of the damaged and shriveled and dead brain cells, and enhance your memory and improve your emotional state and your creativity and all of those things. And then lion's mane is so potent at neurogenesis that it's actually being studied as a potential cure for Alzheimer's. So basically this course is going to consist of practices in meditation, like pranayama. Pranayama is all about inundating the brain with oxygen, which is of course a fuel for it to do its work, to rebuild itself. And deprivation of oxygen is great for altering your consciousness. And so pranayama is basically designed to inundate the brain and then, what is the word that I just used? Starve it basically of oxygen in order to accelerate your progress into altered states of consciousness. And so when you're trying to rewrite your programs in these altered states, with elevated dopamine levels, with psilocybin in your system, with San Pedro in your system, and with this protocol of maintaining flow state, right, which is related to dopamine. I think I missed that, but it's really been incredible putting this together because every little bit that I've intuited has just come together like a jigsaw puzzle. It's absolutely been crazy over the last couple of weeks to start sewing this together. It really does feel like it's the culmination of like my entire life's work. That I, it really is nice work doing this. But I lost my train of thought a little bit there. Pranayama. So, in conjunction with all of these other tools, there is nothing like pranayama as a type of meditation. In fact, I quit smoking tobacco in only an hour or less using a moderate dose of LSD and pranayama. Up until recently, I would still smoke a cigarette every once in a while, but definitely no addiction. Which is also interesting, by the way, if you guys consider that the traditional wisdom regarding that is that if you have had an addiction and then you use these compounds again, you'll be addicted again. And the reality is, if you heal the trauma, if you repattern the brain, like actually physically repattern the brain, instead of just trying to force yourself through willpower into some set of behaviors that you're not conditioned for, you know what I mean? You can walk right out of an addiction. And, I used to have physical addiction to opioids, and I can take them without relapse. I have to be mindful about it. About a year ago, I didn't realize that tramadol was an opioid that actually had physical withdrawal, and I ended up having to wean myself off of it kind of painfully. But I was able to do that with no help from anyone. I didn't need to go to NA. You know what I mean? It's not that sort of trauma has been resolved, and so the addictive behaviors are gone. And so let's look at the potential of all this. We're basically talking about taking the experiences of LSD, psilocybin, ayahuasca, even ketamine has extraordinary capacities. Oh, and we haven't gotten there yet, man. You guys are going to love this part. But we're talking about taking all of the things that those compounds are efficacious at. Yeah, it did. The ketamine helped with that, but we're going to get there. Well, Mr. Charles, it wasn't like it was just totally comfortable. I wouldn't say that either, but the ketamine definitely did make it a lot easier. Okay, so all of the things that these compounds can do, and sustaining the state basically through other methods, so that, all right, so let's talk a little bit more about how that works, because I missed this earlier. So one of the things that I was considering, speaking of ketamine, is that, ketamine is far more addictive than the rest of the compounds that fall under the banner of psychedelic medicine. It is a much sketchier thing. If you are doing it in a clinical setting with a therapist and you're not in danger of buying a bunch of it on the street, it does have uses or it is efficacious at things that none of these other compounds are quite as good at. But it is definitely sketchier, and I hate the effects of it, and I know a lot of other people hate the effects of it as well. So here's the thing. All of these other compounds are serotonergic, including mescaline. But dopamine is actually a precursor to glutamate, which, just as dopamine is it gives you this cognitive clarity, it enhances memory and accelerates learning, it improves mood, it does all these wonderful things, but it is also the precursor to both epinephrine and glutamate. Epinephrine is sort of a mixed bag because that's just the chemical name for adrenaline, basically. And so how you are going to respond to elevated adrenaline levels basically depends on your mental state. So whether it's fear or excitement is going to be up to you. But so that I was just so thrilled to discover that, because I had already put together the flow state stuff. I had started to realize the power of self-regulation of dopamine, and then I had tied all these supplements into it. And then I discovered that dopamine is the precursor to glutamate and epinephrine. And so the elevated levels of glutamate were the missing component, but it turns out that's taken care of by dopamine. And to take it even a step further, remember that I mentioned that threshold dosing, which is basically microdosing to the point where you can actually feel it a little bit. Mescaline causes more increase in dopamine than the rest of the classical psychedelics. So this whole thing just really just beautifully meshed together. And I guess, it's just years and years and years of study, and I just intuited all of this stuff. But it was really remarkable to watch it all come together. Macrodosing, what do you mean, what are my thoughts on macrodosing? It is absolutely, I think, essential that the spiritual experience that comes from psychedelics is experienced. I think there are a lot of people that, well, I don't want to call them people, they're corporations really, but there is a big movement, there's a big push within Big Pharma to create psychedelic mimicking or analogs that do not cause visions. I don't know what is wrong with people, why they think that is something that needs to be done. I also know of a lot of people that justify giving out tourist medicine, ayahuasca basically, that is barely visionary. So you'll see like little patterns and you'll vomit, and you will get benefit from that. You don't necessarily need to have the full experience of the visions and everything in order to derive benefit from ayahuasca, which is another thing that I should mention. All of these harmala alkaloids, whether you're getting them from bobensana, ayahuasca, magic mushrooms were recently discovered to contain them in various ratios depending on the strain. But when you are talking about self-regulation of dopamine and lining your life intentionally with flow state triggers and using all this plant medicine, the fact that these compounds contain anti-inflammatory properties that are so important for, particularly what I'm talking about here is neuroinflammatory, anti-inflammatory, because most of the focus here is on rebuilding our brains and restructuring our brains and doing it consciously in accordance with our perception of what our highest purpose should be, so that we can really have autonomy, pursue freedom, and live in complete health. Along those lines, something I didn't mention, I keep skipping things because there's so much to this, but prebiotics and probiotics are also going to be a component of this course. And so along with the Stamets stack with the psilocybin, niacin, and lion's mane, I've found a prebiotic that helps not only to repopulate the gut, but it turns out that your brain actually has a microbiome of its own, and that is extremely important. And there are certain organisms that you can take orally that will end up flourishing in the brain's microbiome. So we're really talking about hitting this thing with sort of cosmic sledgehammer, that I really think that this protocol, if you follow it, you are going to be able to cure addiction, you're going to be able to cure depression, PTSD, any of this stuff. But not only that, you're going to be able to create a stable, homeostatic platform for you to live your highest purpose, right? I mean, everyone wants to escape the matrix. Everyone wants to discover their highest purpose and live in accordance with that. And there is no better way than to follow the protocol that I'm loosely laying out here. So yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed that more people are dialing in now, and I've really got to jump off. But I encourage you guys to go back and watch this from the beginning. Again, you guys can pre-order the course for me. You'll get a discount, and you'll get the modules as I create them, so that you can give me feedback. That's part of my motivation for giving you a discount, and that way we can work out the bugs. And then, yeah, and the only caveat is that once you decide that you are actually going to undertake this program, it's a big commitment, because once you have sort of messed with your dopamine levels and you have started to create this sort of flow state in your life, trust me, if you fall off from that, you are extremely at risk for depression, and it's just not good, because it's just like coming down off a crack or something, in a way, you know. And I realize that's a big part of what happened to me, because I was living this flow state lifestyle, and then so many elements of it were removed, that I basically lost. My old dopamine baseline was miles above where I ended up after all of these sort of circumstances changed. And so, yeah, you guys, I'm super excited about this. I'm going to try to make the course as affordable as possible. I'm going to make affiliate programs, and I'm going to also start trying to train people so that you guys can also use it to escape the matrix, because if it grows bigger and bigger, I'm not going to be able to do all of the Zoom calls and FaceTime to support people. So we're going to be looking for people to fill those roles. Oh man, I'll take a second to answer some questions. I'm kind of in a hurry to get off, because I still have a secret stream to do, and I don't want to make my patrons stay up all night. It's only been 30 minutes, so we'll go ahead and go for a few minutes longer. But yeah, you guys, I am super excited about this, because I really do think I've created the absolute best protocol for supporting you know, psychedelic medicine and integration, and just generally you know, catalyzing your consciousness. And this is what I've lived for my whole life, basically, is to try to find ways to facilitate this for people. And you know, when I was younger, it was just about playing music and talking to people, but now I feel like I have the ability to really go a lot deeper and use my understanding of neuroscience and plant medicine and all of these things that I've been studying for decades. It finally has some sort of meaningful fruit, which is just really an awesome road mark to arrive at. Do I believe that fasting helps replenish the gut bacteria? I mean, you know, of course, I would imagine that it does. You know, that's not my area of expertise, but I do know that fasting needs to be done carefully and properly, and there are definitely conflicting opinions about what that means. And I can tell you that one of the things that catalyzed my own process, probably more than anything, is 4 days of sleep, food, water fasting. And you know, it was not really a conscious decision. It's like something in my subconscious just told me, you know, you need to just fast for 4 days and 4 nights and not drink or eat water. It's actually a remarkable story, all of the things that went on over the next couple of days. By the way, you guys, do me a favor, we're demonetized, so we get no support from YouTube. If you could hit the like button, share, subscribe, join our Patreon, where I'm about to do a secret stream when we get off of here for people at the $10 tier and higher. This book right here is a book of Masonic secrets. It's formerly not, you're not supposed to have it if you're not a Mason, but I have it anyways. I was a Mason. I should be clear that I'm not a member in good standing at the moment, but it's only because I didn't pay my dues years ago. But definitely an initiate and entitled to actually have the book. Um, and I do share Israel Regardie's opinion that the time for secrecy is over. He, of course, infamously printed all of the secrets of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and pissed off a lot of people. But I think he was correct that it's time to just share this knowledge. And so my secret streams, that is what I am doing. That's part of what I am doing. And then you can make one-time support via PayPal or Zelle. Also, we are having retreats here where I will teach you all about flow state integration and dopamine optimization and plant medicine. And one of the reasons that it's, you know, such a good idea to come here first is that you can use all the plants that we have here in the jungle to really set the stage for this. Bobinsana, Uña de Gato, you know, Dr. Sandi, which is a tree that produces a latex that is very highly esteemed by the Quechua and other people. In fact, this tea that I'm drinking right here has Uña de Gato, Rabo de Mono. No one knows what the hell it is. It's this weird plant that has no leaves and it's a parasite. It grows out of dead wood and it feels just like monkey fur. And then it's kind of like a really hard cucumber on the inside. And guayusa, ayahuasca leaves. What else did I put in here? So anyways, we engineer all these remarkably efficacious medicinal teas here at the retreat based on individual needs from over a dozen different plants. We actually also have a medicine that we get from a shamana, a Quechua shamana out in Archidona that has 32 different trees extracted into it. So let me answer a couple of questions and then I'm going to jump off and do the secret stream. Please, you guys, share this video with people. Help me get this course out there. You know, we really took a beating with the protests in Ecuador last month. It really is practically a death blow. Yeah, we're really trying hard to recover from that. If you don't know what happened, the country was completely shut down. All the streets were blocked. For good reason. The indigenous don't get the respect. They're not even treated like humans by and large here. The person that owns this property actually tried to insist that we exploit them along with her because literally, I quote, she said, we can get away with it because they're indigenous. So yeah, the indigenous were sick of it. They shut the whole country down, but it happened to be right as all of our guests were arriving. Some of them actually made it to the country and had to go back. So it really, like, our overhead didn't stop because of it. So we're really, if you guys like the channel, please do support us. This is the time to do it. Also, I'm open to investors for the course because I would really like to farm out a lot of the, you know, the thumbnails and the editing and just stuff that other people can do a better job. And it'll allow me to focus on just creating more modules and, you know, contacting people about the supplements that we're choosing to incorporate and whatnot. So we can work out something amazing. I'm sure it's going to do really well, and I feel great about it because it's actually good. You know what I mean? It's not some junk course. And I don't think I explained that it's going to include information about different systems of ritual magic. And every course will be customized for the individual based on their needs. So if you're not interested in ritual magic, we'll leave that out and supplement it with something else. By the way, the type of ritual magic that I'm talking about has nothing to do with woo. Even if you just consider it as a very sophisticated type of meditation, it's still extremely powerful and useful. So I would hate actually to see people neglect like the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram because they think magic is ridiculous, when really it's beneficial for anyone to do these rituals. So I did see a couple of questions. Do I have a belief? Any thoughts on pantheism? Yeah, there actually is a name for, oh, I can't believe this is slipping my mind. It's not pantheism, but it's just the belief that the entire universe is sort of conscious. And there is a word for it, and it's become increasingly common and popular amongst even scientists. So, you know, I don't necessarily believe in spirits. This is something that It confuses a lot of people. How can you be an ayahuasca facilitator and teach hermetic magic and all this stuff if you don't believe in spirits? It's not that I believe or disbelieve in spirits, but it's like everything in the universe exists as a probability cloud for me. It's a big maybe. I don't collapse the wave into an actuality. So you know, I do believe that it is absolutely absurd to suggest that the universe is a completely random, blind, that it did all this just purely by random accident. I think the human brain is, look, put it this way, Darwin said that the human eyeball refuted evolution, at least in terms of the blind and random aspect of his theory. He said it falls apart and confronted with just the human eyeball. And this is Darwin. It's just too complex. And the human brain blows the human eyeball out of the water. So, you know, when I was studying about the dopamine self-regulation and optimization part of this course, that was something that was really hitting me, how complicated and how beautiful the sort of symphony of neurotransmitters and neuromodulators and synapses, and you know how the presynapse and postsynaptic relationship works, and how that is all related to these electrical impulses, and you know, the magnetite in the brain, and EMFs and brain waves, and just all of this stuff that is just so extraordinarily complex and sophisticated. And you know, to think that that is entirely random, which isn't to say that I don't think there's any random elements to evolution. I'm just saying that that cannot be the entire story. So I definitely am not religious, if that's what you're asking. By the way, if you guys just dialed in, please do yourself a favor. I'm not trying to be cocky, but this is worthy. I think anyone that is taking psychedelics, any kind of creative person, anyone really, you absolutely have to know the things that I have talked about in this live stream. You have to, because flow state is the answer to our realization of our highest capabilities, to inner and outer mastery, to our full realization of our creative potential, right? Even our financial potential. Flow state is also suppressed by our society. And so we have to reclaim, I think, what we call flow state, and kind of consider it this like peak experience that's very rare, should actually be our normal, or something close to it, as our normal baseline state of consciousness, our normal modality. And that is what this course that I'm putting together is engineered to produce, along with this basic understanding of our neurobiology, our neurochemistry, and how we can responsibly and safely take control of our conscious evolution, or evolution, by engineering those relationships. And I've got it all figured out, mapped out for you. So yeah, flow state lifestyle. It's a simple thing. So let me look back for more questions. No, I have not identified the Bobinsana lookalike, except that I did find that the Quichua have the same name for the tree. I did try it. I took some bark and some flowers and I boiled them down, and my perception is that it is just like Bobinsana, only much stronger. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, Bobinsana is kind of like my ally admixture plant. So when I make ayahuasca, I always put Bobinsana in with the Chaliponga or Samiruka and the Banisteriopsis copy vine, right? I always use Bobinsana. It contains harmalas that are similar to the ones in ayahuasca, and it's used for opening the heart, basically, and it works. It is tremendously powerful at, you know, I am like borderline autistic. My grandfather actually is autistic, and I was severely emotionally abused as a child, so I have like firewalls up between me and emotions, right? So I realized the first time I ever took ayahuasca with Bobinsana in it, that I had never felt unconditional love, not for my mother, not for anyone, which isn't to say that I'm not like caring and empathic. It's a weird thing, but my love was basically all cognitive, right? It was a cerebral kind of, it makes sense to me that I don't want to make people suffer, but it's not really an emotional thing, right? So the first time that I took ayahuasca with Bobansana in it. That's not true. My dog, Diesel, who died years ago, I cried like a baby. I did have that for the dog, but not for people. So the first time I took ayahuasca with Bobansana, I experienced unconditional love for the first time. And so Bobansana is kind of like the foundational plant in my plant medicine work in conjunction with ayahuasca. I put it in teas. When people come to the retreats, you're just consuming Bobansana all the time. I make a paste from it. And actually, when we smoke changa, which is ayahuasca leaves with free-base DMT, I roll a finger like hash of the Bobansana paste and put it in the middle. It's just absolutely essential to everything that I do. And so we were down by the river the other day, and we hadn't been here during this specific time of the year before. We noticed that the trees, these massive trees, had Bobansana flowers. They were a little bit thicker, but the white puff with the pink at the end of the tips. And instead of growing just in spots on the leaves, they were exploding out of the entirety of the branches. And so like a cola of Bobansana flowers, which looks just like a mimosa, if you know the Persian silk tree. And so we looked at the leaves, and they're entirely different, but the structure of the tree was the same as Bobansana. So it has like, 4 or 5 trunks that are all the same size roughly, and it always grows by water. So it has a lot of remarkable similarities. So we asked some Quechua guys that were fishing by the trees, what is this? And they have the same name for Bobansana and this tree. And they said the bark is medicinal. So I had the green light to go ahead and try some. And it does seem that it's the same as Bobansana, only more powerful. So that's another incentive to come to our retreats down here. I'm pretty sure we're working with a medicinal tree that nobody else is working with. Sort of a new discovery. Super excited about that because it's my ally plant, and this is a new chapter for that. No, I don't know who Donald Hoffman is. I certainly know who Albert Hoffman is. Yeah, you guys do. If you're just dialing in, please re-listen. Hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon or PayPal or Zelle because we really need it at the moment. I'm really trying to get this course moving. You can pre-order the course. Just send me an email, and we'll talk about what that entails and what that'll mean. But it's going to change your life for sure. There's absolutely no question about it. No question. I don't care who you are. You could be like really as advanced as you possibly could imagine, and you're still going to benefit from taking this course. There's just absolutely no way that it's going to be a waste of money. No possibility of that. Absolutely none. So no, I don't know Donald Hoffman. For those of you that are just dialing in, we're kind of in the Q&A section. I'm going to go for about 8 more minutes, and then we're going to jump onto the secret stream with my patrons. And we're going to look at the numerology of the number 9, which is all about everything that dopamine does, which just blew my mind today when I realized that, we're doing this dopamine live stream, and then we're looking at the Masonic numerology or the Pythagorean numerology of the number 9. And it dawned on me that it's all about like motivation and inner light. And yeah, that was just, you come to expect that sort of thing in this line of work, I guess. But okay, so no more questions. Did I miss anything? Macrodosing. What are my thoughts on macrodosing? I have an entire channel that is basically all about experiences with macrodosing. I think I started to address that one, and I kind of just went off on a different tangent. But yeah, what I was saying is that, Big Pharma wants to remove the visionary aspect of psychedelics, and I think that doesn't make any sense. And it's actually like it's like neutering the experience or something. The transcendental experience aspect of this is tremendously important. If you take ayahuasca, for example, that doesn't have a lot of DMT in it, there are some tribes and some people that just feel like all you really need is the vomiting, and there is wisdom in that. It is true that that's really important, the purging. Nice. The purging is really important, but the experience of having these visions that are so preposterous and impossible, and to watch things happen in, say, 11 dimensions that we don't even have language for, that has an effect on your consciousness that vomiting and inflammation reduction are not going to do for you. There is no, there's nothing that can replace that experience of the transcendental. So, you know, I definitely think it's a huge mistake to try to circumvent that. And also people that say, oh, well, I only need small doses. And at the root of that, they're just scared. They're afraid. They're afraid to confront themselves. They're clinging to some aspect of their shadow. It is always true. The people that say they don't need psychedelics are 99% of the time the people that need them the most. And the people that say they only need to eat a few mushrooms are the people that have the most severe issues and need the macrodose the most. This is always the case. And the reason is that we cling to our shadow because, particularly as we get older, because it has come to define us to a large extent. And so we're afraid to shine the light on it and dissolve it because we feel like we're going to destroy a part of ourselves that is essential to our identity. Which is, of course, never true. It's the big lie of the devil, right? Misty, I'm assuming you're talking about the launch date for your... Where can you get your course? You have to email me because it does not exist yet. I'm going to start making the first module tomorrow. And so what I'm looking for is people that want to sign up, and you'll get a discount and in exchange for feedback so that I can make improvements before the entire course is released. And so you're going to get PDFs, you're going to get video modules, and you're going to get 20 hours of one-on-one instruction and support from myself. So yeah, this is something I only conceived of in the last week. So, you know, and because of the protests, basically, it just hit me that, you know, if I just do this really quickly, it's a way for us to sort of get back on our feet. And some pre-sales will help me to do that. And also to accelerate the process of releasing the finished, because, man, I'm not that great at editing. Anyone that's watched my channel has known that. I'm kind of, you know, technologically a little bit behind the rest of most of the human race, so it really would be good to be able to outsource a bunch of that stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in the course, just email me. The email is in the description, and for people that buy it before it's finished, I will guarantee one module per week at least, probably more, but at least one a week. And also during that time, the one-on-one support is going to be at least as important. And also, I don't think that's going to be available to people in the future, because I would imagine that if I do enough volume of this, you're going to have to get the course from people, or you're going to have to interface with people that I've trained, because I'm going to be too busy to do it myself. And, you know, I've been doing some shopping around and looking at some of the stuff that's out there. And, you know, I hate to single somebody out, and I've done this before, but I just want to advise you guys that if you're considering Earth Pulse, do not pay $4,000 for that garbage. It is absolute junk. You cannot learn to facilitate ayahuasca in 2 months. It is the epitome of new age garbage, and I actually know a whole bunch of people that have spent the money on it, and they will teach you how to make a very good social media facade, but it is trash. It is absolute trash. So just wanted to put that out there because I had a personal interaction with that guy, where basically they said, we're going to start a mystery school that's going to train people to facilitate ayahuasca. And I said, okay, well, what's your lineage in the mysteries? Like, what have you studied? And he said, oh, I really got to get around to that. And I said, so you have a $4,000 course and you haven't even started to research the material you're teaching? And he made an excuse about how he had to go get to teach a class online, right? So you guys, watch out, man. If you're not considering, you know, if you don't like my course, at least do yourself a favor and don't buy that one. Don't buy that one. And if you hear anyone that is going to think about it, stop them, because I hate that people are doing that to people. And also, it is really frightening that there are people out there that are going to take that 2-month course to learn to facilitate and actually think that they're qualified to facilitate ayahuasca. Like, this guy really probably should get in trouble or something. I mean, he should be deleted. And, you know, I have actually gone and publicly said this on their Facebook and stuff, so don't think I'm just talking behind their back. I've publicly confronted them, and I will continue to do so if I cross paths with them again. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to jump on with my patrons now and do the secret stream. Yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.